All right, so we'll go ahead and get started. I'll introduce myself. My name is Chris Mossmeyer. I am Fine Arts Director, academic coach, speech coach, LD debate coach. I teach a bunch of stuff too at Holy Trinity Catholic High School in Temple. If you couldn't tell by the list of hats, we're a 2A school. If you're a small school, you know what that means. You're like, I'm also the janitor, you know. So actually, when I was principal for 3 years, one of my duties when I walked into the building was to sweep the crickets up. So, because my custodian didn't come in until a little later in the day, and so I literally was at that point the custodian as well as the principal. So I am kind of here as a sub. Jeannie Hilsbeck is our chair or director of academics for TAPPS, and she could not be here today. So Vina said, will you go talk about academic testing? And I went, sure, okay. So I'd like to make this somewhat more of a kind of give and take and hear from you guys. We did that a little in debate, but it's going to be even more so in this one. I'll tell you, we've had a lot of success at our school at the academic state meet. We've been either first or second since 2004, I think, at the state meet. Most of that, frankly, most of our points come from speech events. We focus on that a lot. That's what I did in high school. That's my love, and so I focus a lot on that, on those events, and we do pretty well there. That said, we've been in the top 4 most years on the academic side as well, and just the academic events, because I am also kind of an Excel spreadsheet nerd. I've got all those points going back, and I can see exactly where we were in every year. I totally am. It's really, it's kind of bad. But I want to tell you a little bit about just kind of my philosophy, I guess, on the academic side. I'm kind of curious before I do that, how many of you are at a school where you have multiple teachers that teach the different events, and like you might have one coordinator that is kind of overseeing it, so multiple teachers teach different events? Okay. How many of you, you're the only duck? You're the only one. It's kind of like me. How many of you are like, somebody told me I have to do that this year, and so I figured I would come here today to find out what I'm doing? So, I like the hands didn't go up, but people were like, uh-huh. Don't tell me about it. That's good. You're in a good place. My philosophy on speech events is I want to push those kids into those events, even if they haven't been thoroughly coached. I want them to try it. I want them to get in. I want them to do it early and go to town. And really, that's my philosophy on the academic side as well. I think a lot of times we make the mistake of saying, Johnny is not ready yet, so I'm not going to put Johnny in yet. And sometimes Johnny really isn't ready yet to be like in public, much less at a tournament. But everybody just thought of a name, didn't you?
Yeah. Okay.
Oh yes, everybody has those. But I think it's good to really just kind of push them into that. Sometimes that's where they're going to find their love. The first little bullet point that I put on my notes, this is not really a like a PowerPoint presentation so much as random notes that I wrote down, was to recruit well. Beg those kids, ask those kids to try it, ask those kids to come on. And frankly, it's not always going to be your straight A student. I've had valedictorians who've done the academic events, and I've had valedictorians at the speech events, but I've also had some C students place first. This might be that kid that doesn't do very well in class because he doesn't do his homework, but he really likes this social studies topic this year, and his dad was a history buff or something, right? This might be the kid that is socially awkward, but really has a grasp of numbers and can really do number sense. I call these people robots because they are. I had a robot once. It's a dream still. He's actually getting his PhD right now in mathematics. He was not our valedictorian, but for number sense, he would finish the test routinely. Oh my God. He said actually at one point, I finish in about 9 minutes and take a nap. And I'm like, that's not right. His best score ever, he finished the test and missed 4, and was mad. They do exist, and they're very rare, very, very rare. Like I said, he was he was amazing, National Merit Scholar, all that good stuff. And while I had him, I only had him for a couple of years because he transferred to a big IB program, and now he's getting his PhD in mathematics. But while I had him, he was state champ of number sense, calculator, advanced math, computer science back when we had it. And maybe, I think that was it. I think we were only doing 4 at the time. So, I mean, but he did that for 2 consecutive years. And his score was astronomical. You know, he was truly a find. I've got, right now, I've been, towards the end of the year, we were working with some students who were interested in number sense. Again, some of them were superstar students and others were not. But I was teaching them number sense tricks. They were learning it. We were all very excited. And by the end of the year, we had about 10 kids that were coming in and kind of learning these tricks. That, wow, this stuff is cool. I even recruit because I teach English classes, and there have been more than one English class where I said, hey, I'm going to teach you a number sense trick first. And, you know, some of the kids go, but this is English class, because kids like to complain anyway. But when I show them something really magical, like how to multiply a big number by 25, and they're going, wow, that's amazing. You know the trick, right? Divide the number by 4, multiply by 100, because it's the same thing. So 32 times 25 is 800. So it's cool. You show that to an English class, and then that kid in the back that isn't doing well in your class might all of a sudden go, hey, wow, that's kind of neat. I want to try that out. So definitely recruit well. Try to get those kids involved. Even if it means, hey, I just want you to come to this tournament. We're going on a speech tournament, but they also have academic events. Come and take a number sense test for us. So I've had several students do that. How many of you are blessed with that kid that's your academic captain and it's almost a faculty member? Anybody? I had one last year that was, not last year, but the year before, it was like that. She ran my practices. I was busy working with the speech kids, and if you've got a kid that's got leadership abilities, you can say, hey, I want you to grab those math kids, and I want you to work on math in this classroom right across the way. Mrs. Smith is going to be in there as well, but she's not really coaching you because she teaches history, right? But can you lead that? I mean, you know, it's possible. You have those kids with leadership skills, use them. So recruit well, that's my first tip, I guess you could say. Academic tests. It is really easy to find if you Google. They do move around somewhat because there's a lot of companies out there that obviously sell materials. You can buy old materials from UIL. That's actually a pretty economical place if you go to the UIL store. You can get the spelling list for free from the UIL every year. They used to charge like $1 for it or something, and then they decided that was kind of a pain. It's gotten easier to get that UIL spelling list over the years. It used to be you still had to go through the whole process of ordering it, but it was actually free. And then last year I think it was literally just a link, which made me happy. But you can order old tests from the UIL. There's companies you can order practice materials from. I've used ASW for spelling. Anybody else use that one? ASW Enterprises. They've got some good stuff. They've got some computer tests. Kids love computers. If you haven't learned that or heard that before.
Has anybody used the app? Because I think
there's an app.
there's going to be an app.
Anybody use the ASW app? There's several.
Have you used them?
Yeah.
And the kids like them?
Are they good?
Yeah, they didn't like the proofreading one.
Okay.
Okay.
They like the others.
Nice, nice. Yeah, and it's, I mean, you certainly, you know, there's things that you can buy. We have not bought some of those. We didn't buy anything last year because I found that the year before the kids really didn't use it that much. It really depends on your kids. Some of your kids are going to go and run with it and others not. The kid that I told you about that was finishing the number sense test, I don't know if there was a practice number sense test online that he had not done. Because, yes, he did these for fun. Other kids were watching Friends reruns. He was doing number sense tests. I mean, to him, a Friends rerun was 3 number sense tests. So, you know, he was amazing. He really was. I miss him. You can get a lot of old tests for free, frankly, for number sense calculator, advanced math. In the world outside of TAPPS, that's called UIL mathematics. Our advanced math is equivalent to their UIL advanced or UIL mathematics. I've seen some slight differences between the two tests, but it's pretty much the same. Those are out there. Every once in a while, when they appear in one place, they're there for a while, and then they kind of disappear again because those other companies that are selling you tests don't like it when you're getting them for free, you know, or maybe there's some copyright laws or something. But those are out there. You can find old science tests. I know if you do a search simply for UIL science tests, you can find them. There's a picture of Neil deGrasse Tyson on the page that I'm imagining in my head, and it has like all the UIL tests from years ago, like the early 2000s, and they'll have invitational A, invitational B, district, region, state. So that's 5 practice science tests right there. So, you know, you probably don't want to go back to like the 1800s because science has changed a little. Okay. For things like TAPPS math, your best bet is to see TAPPS about getting old state tests. If you've been around long enough to when we had the districts, I mean, I kept all of those district tests and state tests. When those kids took the math test last year and they came back in my bag, those did not go back to the kid, those went into my file so that I can pull those problems out and work with the new kids. You know, I have frantically erased things off of the test and made copies so that the kids could practice on it. So, so definitely, that's probably the best way for TAPPS because there's not an equivalent outside of the TAPPS world for that event. Spanish is the real hard one because it's new and it has changed. I don't know if are we planning any changes for next year? Does anybody know? So, bless you. It changed a couple of years ago, and so we did have a practice test on the TAPPS website, and then it changed again, and we had another practice test. I'm hoping we'll keep those on the TAPPS website. As far as I know, though, that's the only place you're going to find to practice for Spanish, because it's not a contest outside of this one. There's like one tournament I went a long time ago. ASU, Angelo State University, has a foreign language festival. If you're a Spanish teacher, or it used to be Spanish, French, Latin, at one point German. I went as a Latin teacher way back in the day. But even that contest does not kind of equate to what we're doing in TAPPS. So your Spanish practice materials are going to be fairly limited. And then the 3 events that really are going to be yearly focused current events, obviously, I mean, you can find and use your old current events test, but I'm not sure it's going to help. It's kind of like if your persuasive speaking file still has an Ann Richards folder, you might want to clear it out. So, social studies, we have gone with the UIL for the last several years, so that topic changes every year. And then LitCrit, actually your old LitCrit tests are going to be good for a bulk of the test, but then obviously the reading selection questions will have to be new. Although those selections do kind of go around. This year's selections, Player Piano by Kurt Vonnegut, Othello by, that one's new. Othello though, by Shakespeare, that one's been on the list before, so you might actually find an old test that's got some questions there. And then I believe the poet is Shelley, Percy Shelley. So, but the best place to get those tests would be if you go to a practice tournament sometime during the year. We'll talk a little more about that in a minute. Let's see. This kind of goes back to the recruit well thing, but a little note I put down. I am a big believer when we come to the state meet, I'm going to have 3 kids in every event. Now that I can, right? Before this past year, we could only have 2 in each event, and I made sure I had 2 in each event. Now with 3, I love it. That 3rd spot is usually going to be my freshman or my sophomore who's just getting started. I look at this as a building thing. I put 3 sophomores in Ready. It's an event that we have not done well in. I was happy to see that one of them got ranked this year. She did not place, but she at least got ranked by the judges. I was like, all right, good. It's a start. But I picked 3 sophomores that pretty much write well, and I said, hey, let's look at some prompts from the UIL. Let's talk about how you would address this. Let's look at the rubric. Let's look at some sample essays that have won. Let's see if we can figure this out. And I don't even care if you place this year, but my hope is that by the time you're a senior, you're placing. So I'm trying to build those 3 as we go through. And then I don't also limit my 3, limit it to my 3. I'm going to be recruiting others that are going to be other choices.
Are those winning sample essays available easily?
I found some on the UIL webpage, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, if you go to UIL's webpage is going to have a lot of resources for you on these different events. Don't spend time looking at computer science or computer applications since we don't have that in TAPPS. It won't help you. But, crossover between the UIL and the TAPPS events is significant. So, yeah.
This may be a really stupid question, but I am brand new to this.
No problem. Sorry.
I've gone on the TAPPS website.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
can't even find a comprehensive list of all of the things that
Oh, okay.
we can
Sure.
enter in academics. Where can I find
The
that?
best place would be in the bylaws. So if you go to governance, bylaws, and then right there will be a whole list, and each link will be a link to what those events are.
Okay.
Yeah, but they did tell us that they're gonna revamp that website,
So it might be different by the time you get on.
I would wait till July 1st probably, and then,
Yeah.
look.
Tax.
You could, yeah, that's, you know, it is, I usually have to get on and kind of look around in a few different places. The UIL webpage is also, like I said, a good place, but before you go there, you'd want to know what TAPPS has.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, TAPPS bylaws, it'll definitely be in there. I think if you go to, it's fine arts, then academics. I think somewhere in there, it probably has a list as well.
It kind of has a list-ish,
Yeah, that's,
Yeah, so that's what I found.
so
is
you could
just-
extrapolate.
right.
Yeah.
For the video, TAPPS is a wonderful organization, but the website is kind of... It's a work in progress. It's a great thing. I love you, Vina. Okay. So, they're so going to edit all of these videos, I hope. Practices. So, for those of you who are kind of the lone duck, man, finding a practice time is almost impossible because my number sense kids are in soccer, or in debate, or in one act, or they go home on the bus, you know, whatever it is. Academics is one of those things that really, if you get the right kids who are interested in this enough to go home and, I don't know, read a book rather than play a video game, that's the kid you want. I do not make it a policy at our school that you have to be at my practice or else you can't do it. I want the best 3 on my state team. And I want to take as many as I can to those practice tournaments. So I'll take 6 or 7. If I could take all 10 of those number sense kids to a practice tournament, I would do it. So practices, I don't think are super duper important unless you can find a time. When I was principal, I was fortunate enough to hire a really good football coach. Stick with me. Who coached number sense. And he told me, this is how I do it. And it was a 10-minute practice for number sense. They met once a day for 10 minutes. He said, I teach them a trick, we do 3 practice problems, and then they go on their way. And at the end of the week, that 10 minutes is a practice test. That's it. I'm like, that is ingenious. And so I've tried to imitate that a little bit over the years. Taking 10 minutes of just focused effort and getting that trick out there, it works. It's something that has to build because there's a jillion tricks out there, but after a while it can accumulate. I found those number sense tricks, by the way, just searching. Again, UIL number sense tricks. And I found, I think, 3 or 4 different sites. One of them was a very thick packet. Bryant Heath, I think, is the author. It's kind of an old one. There's another one, Dr. Numsen is another name out there that I saw. Yeah, and there was a couple. But if you just search number sense tricks, then you can find those pretty handy dandy, and they're exciting. I mean, they really are. Once you start to see them, there was something on this year's number sense test. I saw the same fraction used on like 2 problems that were 4 apart, and I went, there is something about that fraction. And we went and looked at it, and we found out that the fraction was something like 1/15 or something, and that made both problems just beautiful. I mean, like super duper easy, because it was like 1/15 of 300. Wow, just cross that out. That's amazing. So. Squeeze practices in wherever you can. I mean, like I said, if you can do number sense in 10 minutes, if you can, for Science, I mean, you know, if you can get your science teacher to explain one principle to a kid in 10 minutes or something like that, I mean, that'd be great. We were fortunate this year. We had our night period at 3 o'clock was a study hall. And I went to my principal and I said, instead of study hall, I want to get my academic team. And I pulled my academic team. They all reported to my room, which is great because they hated study hall anyway. And I said, we're going to work on academic team stuff. And I said, number sense guys, you're here. And we're going to do the calculator as well. Where are my social studies guys? You guys are going to be here. Go through that list of websites this past year about, the book was about news, journalism and race. What was it?
Race beat.
Race beat. The race beat, yeah. And then what was the topic? I don't remember like the general.
Civil rights.
Civil rights. Go through all these cases. Find out what these cases are about. My lit crit people, get over here, discuss a book. You know, take these Holman handbooks that we've bought and just kind of go through them. You know, find something. You know, and then I would try to spend time with each group as I could. The spellers, one kid called the spelling words, the other 4, you know, wrote them down, and then they checked them to see how they did. We did that in 45 minutes, and I was most of the time the only teacher. I sometimes tried to drag one other teacher in there to kind of help divide it. And like I said, if you've got leaders, put it on them. You know, put it on the students to kind of lead the way. Kids are kids, so if you turn your attention away too much, there's going to be giggling. I know one kid studied current events just because his girlfriend was in there studying science, but that kid got 6th. I'm happy. So, you know, I mean, the right motivation, man, will get you. So, anybody have any other suggestions on practices? Anybody do something that you're like, wow, this is amazing, people should know?
Our Ready Writers,
Please, tell me. Write this down, Kathleen.
which one's the one online? Is that Ready Writers?
Ready Writing's online, yes.
Okay, our Ready Writers did really well because they were in our AP Lit class.
Okay.
So immediately pull if you've got an AP program, a successful AP program, and our kids did really well. So that's a good place to start. And they didn't study any other time.
They just knew it right.
They just did it from their
The
class.
third question on the AP Lang test is the ready writing prompt.
Correct. Yes, it is.
So
It really
if you
is.
can pull from your AP Lang class.
Yeah, AP3 is, I teach AP3 and 4, so like I said, you're but that third one is, it is
the
the
question.
ready. So, yeah, I have more than once gone up to a teacher and said, either who's a good writer in your class or who likes science, you know, especially with the ability to send 3 to state, I'm going to go and talk to those teachers. If I've got 2 kids that have been working on calculator all year, I'm going to go find out the third one that also plays with the calculator all the time and stick them in there. So, good. What else? Any others? Yes?
On that same note, Lit Crit is really comparable to AP Lit.
It is.
And so if you can pull from the AP Lit class.
Right.
Or a good reader from your
Right.
pre-AP sophomore class, whatever.
I'm going to brag about one of my students, just as far as progress is concerned. So, I have a student, I was just informed right before this, I was super excited. She was 2A Fine Arts Student of the Year for females, Madison. Madison, and I hope she looks this up online someday, Madison as a freshman was disqualified in 2 events at state. In duet acting, she was disqualified for time. And in Lit Crit, she was disqualified because she wrote her essay in the wrong place. You're supposed to write your essay on the back of the answer sheet, and she wrote it on the back of the test. Brutal.
No.
Madison then did Lit Crit her sophomore year and duet. I can't remember what the results were. They were okay. I don't think she placed in Lit Crit last year, like her junior year. She did okay. She placed in the, I think they were 2nd in duet. I'm not sure. And then I think she placed in Lit Crit. This year as a senior, 4 years doing this. This shows perseverance. State champion in duet, state champion in Lit Crit. She knew where to write the stupid essay and it was long. So I was happy about that. But and I mentioned that A, to brag, but also just, you know, sometimes, I mean, she was crushed as a freshman. Crushed after that. And I said, no, stick with it. Come on, you can do this. This is exciting. You know, you had a good piece. It was just not long enough. And your essay, you know. when you've got a kid that's disqualified in something, it does stick with them. My assistant coach, who graduated valedictorian, was a 3-time national champion and a 7-time gold medalist at these things. Well, more than that, but that was her junior and senior year 7-time gold medalist. She works for us now, and she was disqualified in her first year, I think, for not putting a title on the ready rag. She still remembers. So, I mean, it does. It sticks with them, but don't let it be the only thing they're known for. So, very proud of Madison. So, other thoughts, other suggestions for the group? What would you tell a newbie? We've got some newbies here, the ones that were nodding earlier.
I did try to really go over all of that stuff, like things that will get you disqualified.
Yes.
I really hit on the tiebreaker hard and like focus on that tiebreaker because I've graded so many. I looked correct, we only brought 2 this year, but they got first and third, and they both won on the tiebreaker.
Nice.
I was like, I try to focus on a lot of that stuff as much as possible. Things
Yeah.
that just disqualified. Make
There-
sure you do that tiebreaker, spend some time on it. You know.
Make sure you know the rules of the
Yeah.
event, and that seems obvious, but you know, every event has a different rule. I used to come up with a sheet. I haven't updated it recently. Of guess or not guess. So in science, you don't want to guess, because if you miss it, you're going to get -2. And I go through it and I say, if you can make an educated guess on 4 problems, do it. Because mathematically, you're probably going to come out ahead. You get one of them right, the other 3 wrong, you broke even. And the chances are good that if you can make an educated guess on 4 of them, you might get 2 of them right, then you're in the plus. Honestly, at the state level, if you're not guessing a little, you're not going to have a chance, because you know those other kids. There are robots at every school, and so those robots are going to get some high scores. But at the same time, know the rules. I had the joy of explaining to a kid why his number sense score was a -2 something, and it was because he started at the end. You know, number sense is graded. It's plus 5 if you get it right, -4 if you get it wrong, and it's graded to the last answered problem. So I tell my number sense kids, focus on the first 20. Okay, don't skip 2 to answer 1, because mathematically you fail, right? If you want to skip 1 to get to 1, you know, towards the end, okay, that could work, especially if you know that answer. But if you're skipping 2, I had a kid this year, he was 9th. It had to have been 9th because he just barely missed it. And he skipped 2 problems to get to the last one. And I'm like, if you hadn't done that, your score would have been significantly, and he missed it. So I mean, it was like -12 right there. It's crazy. But definitely know how to do it. On the tiebreakers, you know where the essay goes, spend some time. What you mentioned also reminds me, I had a student whose Spanish test year before last was not graded because she didn't answer the essay. She ran out of time. The last kind of written part. And this year, for my Spanish guys going in, I said, if we're worried about time, I still don't even know what the test looked like, skip to the end and write something down so that you're not disqualified. On all of these, even though those essays are tiebreakers, you have to answer them. So tell the kids, write something down on the essay. And if you're worried that you're not going to get there, write something down at the beginning of the essay and then expand it once you're done taking it. You should be guessing in Lit Crit, guessing in social studies, what other current events. You know, there's no penalty if you guess. You know, you have a chance. So, other things like math, advanced math, calculator, you don't want to be guessing, and you want to go in order for number sense and calculator. There's a lot of, for the newbies, I would tell you, there's a lot of different events. But again, put it on the kids. Hey, this is basically what it is. Try this test, and let's see where we go from there. Like I said, I'm also very compulsive. I make sure to fill out all my entries. Anybody else do that? Like I have 3 in every event. Boom.
Every entry.
Yeah. I call it defense, really. I want my team to look like an army when they're coming in, and I've had kids who are like, man, I only got 8th. And I'm like, but you also prevented somebody from getting 8th at some point. So, that's good.
Yeah, and every point counts.
Every
so
point
that
counts.
8th place might determine the state title.
Right. The very first time we won state, we got 50 points. Second place was 48. This year we got 2nd place. Some hard moment. We had 160 points. But Bethesda was amazing, so. Bethesda's amazing. I'm saying that in the video too.
Also, there's some events that there are no limits as to how many kids can do them. I mean, like art history.
Oh, in the
really
art side?
can-
Yeah.
I guess that's art, not academic.
Yeah.
It's kind of academic art. I don't
Right.
know, it kind of falls for us.
Did
under
they not have,
academics.
they used to have a limit of 3 in art
I
history.
don't know. In art history, they do it ahead of time, and you can have
Right, okay.
any number of kids do it. So that's something to be aware of.
What's that?
But
You can only have 3 in ready writing.
Yeah, you can
though.
only have
Right.
3 in ready.
But
writing.
but
Okay.
art history, you can
Huh,
have.
that's interesting.
Yeah, all the academic events
Yeah.
are limited to 3.
So that's something for people to be aware of. You know,
And I obviously I say, you know,
points.
make sure you got 3 kids in every event, ignoring the cost. Obviously, there is a cost. I think this year's entries were $12 each, so I mean, you're talking $36 per event, so it can be a hefty check. If you can stress, I'm very fortunate, and I don't take all the credit. I'll take most of it, but not all of it. We've been very successful, and my school hangs its hat on our academic team, and we proudly say, you know, when we win. This year, the newspaper had, I still liked it, because even though we came in second, this was such a fun year. It really was. It was exciting. Our newspaper, our hometown newspaper, put on the front page, you know, streak ends. So we'd won for 7 years, but it was great because you know, it was like it was very respectful. I mean, the reporter was excited about it, and I told her, I said, well, we got some bad news, but you know, it was really close. At one point, we were down by 75 points, and we lost by 4. And it was, you know, mainly the speech events got us close. But it was exciting, and that is something. It's a source of pride for our school. So when I go to my principal and say, I want 3 in every event, and yeah, little Johnny, poor Johnny, the freshman, I don't think he's going to place, but I want him to go. You know, the principal, I've been fortunate enough to have administrators that have seen that as a support. I put a kid that was in my Latin class in Spanish one year because I did not have a third Spanish person. I said, that's kind of the same, go. She got a positive score, but nowhere near placing.
I
Yes,
heard
ma'am.
you say that you bring in your Army.
Yes.
So do you not allow students to compete in multiple events?
Oh yes, definitely, yeah.
Yes, you do, or
Yes,
yes,
I
you
do.
don't?
No, I do. I do, but it's, I had actually 28 students this year. I don't know what that worked to, but I had a student do, my speech guys usually are doing at least 2 or 3. Yeah, speech events. And then, I want to say, I think Madison actually did 5 events. And then I had somebody else do 4. I want my number sense kids to also be my calculator kids usually. Not always. I mean, sometimes there's a calculator kid that's better and terrible at number sense. But you know, even if I'm just talking number sense, calculator, and advanced math and TAPPS math, that's by necessity 6 students.
Right,
Because you've got 3 in number sense. Those can also be the 3 in calculator, but they can't be the 3 in advanced math and TAPPS math, right? So I've got at least 6 right there. So just
Is there a place on the TAPPS website or anywhere that tells you which events overlap each other when?
They have really done a good job on that schedule to make sure that doesn't happen. So this year, I believe there was only 1 test at a time. Now, there is some crossover with speech. So we really, like, we were very happy that, for example, duet and late crit did not interfere. But with the speech events, when they are getting to the out rounds, the elimination rounds, if they're just in speech events, they can be in more than 1 at a time. They can cross-center. But if they're in a testing event and a speech event, they can't do both. So really, the only thing you have to worry about
We
is...
took him persuasive, and then he was supposed to take number sense,
Right.
but it conflicted.
So you want to look at that. I mean,
Ready to go.
we planned that very carefully. Like my son actually did persuasive speaking, and he was one of my number sense guys, but I did not put him in number sense because I knew that was a possibility. So, yes,
There's probably gonna be, probably gonna be some more conflict, because they're putting, art on Tuesday now.
oh, are they?
Yeah, Tuesday,
Yeah.
Wednesday.
Yeah, if you've got art
Make it
kids,
more complicated.
and frankly, I'm the academic guy. I semi-ignore the art people entirely.
Well, I do
but,
too, because they were always
Yeah.
You know, but I've had, in the last couple of years, I've had people that
Of course.
are coming in on some of the academics also.
Yeah.
So they're not
Yeah, if
gonna
you
have art
can
on Monday?
No, arts are Tuesday and
semi-specialize
Wednesday.
your guys, like my speech guys, I had a
Robotics
little
on Monday.
crossover with academic events, but
Robotics and
not
LP.
much.
Yeah.
My art guys were, I had some students that were in the academic meet that had art pieces, but they didn't do the on-site stuff. Our on-site people were completely different, so, yeah.
I know speech is kind of a different animal, but
Yeah.
can they kind of do multiple events?
Yes. I believe they just can't have the same prelim time. But I think even that wasn't an issue this year, so they can do
So
multiple.
like even frozen poetry?
Oh, yeah. Which is different, by the way, than UIL. UIL, at the district and regional stuff, they have to decide prose or poetry, but here, they're allowed to do more. And we don't have categories, thank goodness.
How many things can one student enter? I thought there was a limit.
There used to be a limit.
Okay,
Back
so
in the
there's
block
no longer a
days,
limit?
I believe there's no, is there? I think they got rid of the limits.
Just
Okay.
because of the conflict.
One of the students,
That was an
Yeah.
issue with one of my.
one of the
students.
really successful students at Bethesda this year, and I know because I was focused, he was in 7 events, 7 testing
Whoa.
events. So, yeah, he did very well.
I think
And he's a senior. Oh. I'm so sad. Really happy he graduated. Very happy for him too. So,
Has the math changed? Is it still freshman, sophomore for TAPPS?
I haven't heard any
TAPPS math?
difference,
No
I'm
difference,
assuming.
should still be the same.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
For the top state meet, how many students can we enter in each category?
3. Yeah, 3 per event.
I'd be interested to know, at your schools, if you charge your kids by event, or how you
We do.
get the
yeah.
money for this.
We
Yeah.
don't.
We do, we have to charge
We
our
don't.
kids for everything.
We don't.
I've been in 2 schools and they both handled it differently. The first one charged any academic students $250 to participate for the year.
Wow.
And I think that included like hotel stuff
Yeah.
and, you know, food and entry fees, that kind of thing. But then, and then also practice meets. And then my current school doesn't charge.
We do, we've got kind of a semi-machine. So I ask every student on our, we call it our forensics team. It includes academics, it includes everything. Speech, drama, academics. I ask each student to get a sponsorship of at least $125. We've got some families that'll do $125. We've got some that'll do $1,000. We solicit from outside, and we also host a lot of tournaments. I would encourage you guys. We've got a few teams.
He runs excellent tournaments.
I do run it.
Do you have the dates yet for those?
Yes, and actually they're all on joyoftournaments.com. Now, we run a great practice tournament in March, which has most of the academic events.
Chris,
yes, ma'am.
the state meet got moved.
Oh, when?
It's March 30, 31,
Ooh.
01, so Shamrock might need to be moved.
It is?
No, Shamrock's right before that.
I know, but
Yeah.
it'd be great if it was not 31 before.
What she's saying is you should.
What she's saying is Kathleen wants me to move my tournament. Okay.
Hey, I
We'll see. But
I give you all my money,
Yeah.
so I feel like I can say that.
but anyway, we run tournaments and that raises some. I also tell my kids that if they can't get a sponsorship, I will go to my advancement director and say, hey, is there somebody this student can write to ask for a sponsorship? So we have a few students who are, especially the ones that are on financial aid, financial need, who are not able to do that, and I will have them write a letter to somebody. I really stress to my kids, even though I want that 125 from everybody, or at least 125, that I don't want money to be the difference. So the only time I've turned away a kid is when they're not following the rules, they're not doing what they're supposed to. When we host tournaments, I want kids to bring in water bottles or candy or something like that to sell. And if I've got a kid that's always late and doesn't do that and didn't get a sponsorship, then I'm like, you go away. But I've never turned away a kid just because they couldn't pay.
So no matter how many events they're entered in, it's $125.
Yeah, and that covers them for the year. So, I mean, we go to a lot of tournaments. Our schedule next year has 17 tournaments on it, so that includes the NPRs.
So I've never done a tournament. Is that just you're going and taking the tests? It's like
Yes.
a practice dry run,
Yep.
basically? Okay.
And the good thing about the TAPPS events overlapping with the UIL is that you can go to a UIL tournament, an invitational tournament. Joyoftournaments.com is your new best friend. I will tell you that in the fall, the tournaments really lean more towards speech. You'll find a few tournaments that have academic events, but not a lot. And in the spring, you'll have a lot of academic tournaments as well. So, and no matter where you are in the state, there will be tournaments near you. So, I stressed this to the LD group right beforehand. You want to make sure that you are that you look over their rules carefully. Not like the rules on taking the test, but like how many are they going to expect you to have somebody there to help grade? Are they going to expect you to have somebody help judge debate or speech? You know, watch their calendar or their schedule. You know, make sure that you know what the schedule is. I was at a tournament several years ago, and a coach from Belton High School came up to me and said, "I didn't know LD was last night." And I said, "Yeah, it sure was. Missed you guys." So,
Make sure you know the debate topic.
yeah, make sure you know the debate topic. You know, and you might have kids, like we have an accounting class. I've actually had a few students that have taken the UIL accounting test at these invitationals. Just, I mean, I'm not going to turn away a kid that says I want to spend my Saturday taking a test, even if it's not preparing them for the TAPPS thing. But you can, you know, you can usually enter any of them. If it's a tournament you've never gone to, you email the coach and say, especially, I'm brand new at this, like to bring some students. Any help? You know, any suggestions? Anything I need to know? I have yet had it. I have not ever had a coach tell me, "No, please don't come to my tournament," because again, you're bringing them money, right? I mean, there's entry fees. You're going to bring them money. They're not going to turn you away.
There are virtual tournaments as well.
Yes, and there are virtual. I haven't done any of those, but there's a lot of virtual stuff.
Especially if you have. Somehow they expect academic competition to go directly to state without any practice.
Right.
Whereas, you know, other areas don't expect that. But the virtual tournament kind of balances that because your kids don't really have to be gone.
Right.
That absence thing, that yes, but kids can't be absent. You know, the virtual tournament helps to balance that. So
that's true.
It doesn't obviously do speech.
Right.
Oral events aren't on there, but all the written events you can do at the virtual events, virtual tournaments.
Is it Virtual Texas?
I don't
Texas.
know. I haven't been in charge of that piece of it before.
Yeah. And a lot of the tournaments are on Saturdays too. So I mean, that's the other thing is you know, if you're going to go to a tournament, realize that you're probably giving up one of your Saturdays, and you're going to be going with kids that are also giving up their Saturday. I love it. I mean, I did it in high school. It was a joy. I'm literally doing what I always loved in high school, so that's pretty neat. You know, summers are sacrosanct to me though because of that. Since, you know, I work 6 days a week, usually during the week or during the year. When summer comes and somebody says, "Well, you want to do something in July?" It's usually no. But it's a good time, and you're also it's amazing to see these kids outside of the school and to see them representing your school. You're seeing the best of the public schools as well, and there are great kids in public schools, and you get to meet a lot of them.
Yeah.
So.
And we can compete against them.
And we compete against them. Yeah, I mean, you can compete against them, and you can do well against them. This is not like you know, I mean, you don't have to take your football team and try to beat a 6A school. Your one number sense kid could beat a 6A number sense kid. You know, in speech and debate, that's even more true. I would argue. You know, your debaters can beat guys from very big public schools. We do it all the time. It's awesome. It's a lot of fun. So nothing like a David versus Goliath, too, right? So, let's see. And when you go to a tournament, depending on the tournaments, you'll definitely get your test back. Most tournament directors will also give you a copy of every test they gave. I mean, I have an accounting file. Because I kept getting these accounting tests that I never used, but you know, I've got it. Computer science test, and journalism. Oh man, that always drives me nuts. I'm like, oh, here comes an academic result. Oh, it's headline writing. Great, that's something I'm not in right now. So, other thoughts, questions, concerns? So, when is the general academic thing? Do we know? Is there one? No, I mean,
tomorrow.
Is it tomorrow?
Tomorrow.
2:45.
Yeah. Right, the noon-ish.
Right.
There's a fine arts general session,
Now.
4:45 today.
Right.
Yeah.
Go to general goals at the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah, academic.
But the general meeting
The
is-
general
Other
meeting
stuff
is,
is
it's at
tomorrow.
1:45 tomorrow.
1:45 tomorrow is the general academic speech debate meeting.
Right.
That will be a good time to double check any changes. I think over the years we've really clarified nicely the calculator rules. That is one thing, when you go to a practice tournament, make sure that you're following UIL rules, because for example, their science calculator is different than what we allow in TAPPS. So you want your kids to make sure they have the right one. Basically, I think it's it has to be a non-graphing, something, there's some numbers. I'm not really the science person, so. I know TI 36 used to be like the standard, and I don't know what it is now. But in TAPPS, as far as my understanding is that it is still any calculator that does not have to be plugged in, and you have to clear the memory. So, or have the kids clear it. Kids are good with things like that. So. Other thoughts, questions, concerns?
This is a weird random thing,
Yes,
but
ma'am.
one of the things that is an unusual stumbling block for kids and an irritation for proctors is make sure you know what kind of pen or pencil they're supposed to have.
That's in the rule.
I was in one test last year proctoring, and there were like 100 people who did not bring the right color of pen.
Yeah, and the big one on that is number sense again. It has to be blue pen. And there are all kinds of ways to get disqualified and all of these things.
Yeah.
If you're ready writing
capital letters
Yeah.
or multiple choice.
capital
Yeah,
letters for
yeah.
multiple choice, spelling. I've had a kid that spelled every word right, but they were in all caps.
They were in all.
Yep.
So got everything wrong.
Right,
And I was like,
exactly.
all of these are-
It's like, unless there's an acronym, in there, you just
So sad.
it's-
It is, I hate that.
make sure you answer the essays.
Could the people who've used the spelling app comment a little more on that?
Oh,
The
yeah, the
ASW spelling
Can you
app?
tell us a little more about
Tell us
that?
a little more about that.
I was actually sitting thinking after I said that, I don't think it was the ASW, I think it was, Best of Texas.
Okay.
But it's still an app, right?
Yeah, we get their practice test, and the apps, and it was, they have several apps, and they seem to be really good. And then some, what credit,
Bless
not sure if they have a science, I think they have to try the physics one, they've got several spelling ones.
Okay.
Nice.
And that's Best of Texas? Is that where you order your supplies from for spelling?
It's a virtual, it's a virtual, competition.
Okay,
And so when we have whatever events we do, we buy the right to, do that.
okay,
And then some of the apps have been purchasing through them as well.
okay.
So
We have used the computer test from ASW,
oh,
Yeah.
and that's good. That also helps with the time of practice, because you
Yes.
can have them do tests outside of time, but still get some accountability for having done that. They can turn in results to you,
Right.
and so you kind of know they're doing
And
that.
I'll tell you that the biggest challenge I have is kind of as one of the lone duck coaches, is that accountability. I really have to rely on the kids a lot.
Yeah,
And it's kind of one of the limitations. For speech, they've got that accountability when they're going to tournaments all year. When you go to tournaments and you are in the big mix, if there's 60 people in number sense, your top guy might still be great at TAPPS, but not good there. So it's kind of a challenge. I really use the tournaments as kind of my accountability. You're going to come, you're going to practice. I know you're here, doing this, rather than just telling me you're studying at home. So, if there's nothing else, I think we're right at time. Thank you so much for coming. I will tell you, I hope and strongly encourage you to do some tournaments during the year. Host some tournaments if you can. Even just get together with some other schools or something. Any practice helps. Thank you very much.